In this video, I'm going to talk about where I'm at today and how I got there. Hello self, my name is Eddie Cespedes and I make these videos to document my journey from zero to $1 million net worth. To start this off, this all goes back to when I used to work at a funeral home. I was working a service one day at a church and I was working with this elder lady. She was really grumpy and we were outsourcing her hearse because I guess it was like a really busy day. So anyways, I got stuck with this grumpy old lady and I was in my final semester of college, and I was majoring in a bachelor's in anthropology. And this lady one day, while we're just sitting there, we're standing waiting for the service to finish up so we can go ahead and do our thing. She asked me, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, I'm majoring in anthropology and it's my final semester. So then she asked me, well, okay, are you gonna make any money in that? And I said, well, it's not about the money. It's just as long as I feel like I'm in a good job and as long as I'm happy doing what I'm doing, then the money doesn't really matter to me. Like, I'm okay just living, an average life and blah, blah, blah. And all that basically stuff that I've heard a lot of people say, right? But now, that question really pissed me off. So I was thinking about that question probably for months. And so it really was bugging me. I'm talking like this lady took up a lot of real estate in my head. So one day I'm just thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? And this was probably maybe a few months later. And I started thinking about things and I'm like, this old lady was right. I should probably be trying to make money, focus on money, and not any of this other crap. And I think what brought that on was once I realized that the job that I would get if I have a master's degree would probably only bring in about 45 to maybe 60 on the higher end. And I would be probably somewhere between 45 and 60 in student loans. So the ratios on that really did not work out. So I thought, well, maybe I could just work really hard in a company, move on up, make more money, and then I don't have to take on any extra debt. So at that point, I pretty much just said, I'm going to leave this whole anthropology thing behind. I don't think it's worth it. And as I was doing a lot of research into schools and all of that for graduate school, I kind of realized that there's a lot of programs like that. There's actually a lot of useless programs, and I probably should have known that sooner, and I'm ashamed that I didn't. But that's kind of when it hit me that this whole college thing is just one giant scam. So at this point, I just realized that, I kind of do want to make money. I don't want to live an average life because I was looking around, and even the people that I work with at the funeral home, I'm seeing all of these people who are much older and they are working just because they have to work. They can't really afford to retire. And that's when it kind of just hit me. I don't want to be that person. Even though by this time I was thinking, hey, I know the easy way that I should live my life, kind of like the basic way. It was basically like the whole Dave Ramsey way of living your life with no debt and all of that. And that's good. The problem with that is it's too, I don't know. I just don't like it. I feel like it would take me probably, 40 years to really enjoy my money. So now I'm at the point that I'm like, I don't want to be able to retire by the age of 60. I want to be able to retire a whole lot sooner. That doesn't mean that I'm going to retire, but I want to be able to say, fuck you to my managers or to whatever people I'm working with that I just do not like. In other words, I want to be able to do something that I like doing. And if somebody ever comes around and gives me a headache about it, I want to be able to just tell them to F off and go elsewhere without any fear of where my money's going to come from. How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to, take care of a family? I don't want to worry about any of that stuff. I basically just want to have FU money. So anyways, that was the whole mindset behind that. And so at that point, I decided that I don't want to be average. I want to be above average. I don't have to be way above average, but I want to be better than the average person, because the average person really just sucks, to be honest. So by this time, I had already purchased my first property. So I was in my third to last semester over in college. I went to UCF, over University of Central Florida. And I was in my third to last semester, and I purchased my first property. And my whole thought process behind that was I just want to have a place that I can call home until I get my final home. So I didn't go in with a mindset of, hey, this is gonna be the home that I'm in for the rest of my life. I just thought, hey, I just need to buy a house for me, or a property. I ended up buying a townhome. But I just needed something where I could go to and call home until eventually I was more financially set to purchase an actual house. And that was it. That was my whole thought process behind it. I wasn't thinking investor or anything like that. I just wanted a place that I could go to that was mine. And instead of paying rent to somebody, I wanted to pay towards something that would eventually down the line be mine. So I was thinking really just retirement. I was thinking if I can eliminate my housing expenses, then hopefully during retirement, things would be a little bit easier for me. Little did I know that would really be probably the best decision that I probably ever made. I was able to get into real estate before COVID hit, and that was really good because that house ended up appreciating a whole lot during this whole COVID period. And at least I already had something that was mine. Now, there were a lot of issues with that property when I first bought it. Like, I think I lived in it for about 2 months before one of the pipes broke. And so it's 2 stories. One of the pipes broke in the bathroom, and water just leaked down all the way into the living room downstairs. And that was catastrophic. Like, I was panicking when that happened, but ultimately I think that it helped me not be so stressed when things happen, because now I have 4 properties, and when stuff happens, I kind of don't really stress it as much as I would have if I had not lived through those other experiences early on from the first property that I had. Now, the way that I was able to purchase this first property was I pretty much lived with my parents at that time. I was 25 years old, and I said, I'm about to graduate college here soon, and once I graduate college, I want to have my own place that I can live in. And so while I lived with them, I helped out around the house. When things broke, I would put in money to fix it, and I did pay rent. I paid the utilities, I paid the internet, and I had to put in money for food whenever it was required of me. So that really helped. I was able to save probably maybe $10,000-$15,000. Little did I know that was, at the time, I didn't know that would have been enough to purchase a house. But what triggered the purchase was, I said I wanted to buy a house. I didn't know what it would take to buy a house. I had no idea how to buy it. I thought this was a decision for people who were a lot older. But I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and try it and see if it works out. I had no idea what was required, but I kind of just dived right in. Called a friend's mom of mine. She gave me some advice. She connected me to some people, and I qualified at the time for, I think it was $130,000 loan, which wasn't a lot, but houses weren't that expensive yet, at least down here in Florida. So I was able to get myself into like this little townhome, and ultimately it worked out. So I'm really proud of myself for just diving right in without even knowing anything. But like, I made it a thing where I said, hey, this is what I want. I want to dive in. If they tell me, no, you can't buy a house, at least what I was hoping to take from it was that if I don't qualify for the house, at least it would tell me why I don't and what are the things that I need to do in order to be able to qualify for the house. And so that's the mindset that I had going into it. Ultimately, it worked out in my favor because I did end up finding a house and I ended up closing. Now, that was in 2018, towards the end of 2018. When 2019 came around, I ended up accumulating a lot of debt. So the AC that I had on the house stopped working, which really sucked. So I ended up having to pay $6,000 to get a new AC. At the time, I did not have $6,000 to just cough up. So I was also traveling a lot in 2019, which is why my savings were just not really there to what I was accustomed to having it. So anyways, the AC thing happens, and I go to Home Depot. I get a Home Depot credit card. I start talking to one of the people that was over there, which was actually pretty funny because I went in, I was working at the time, and I got sent to go to Home Depot to pick up some light bulbs and some other supplies. And so sometimes in Home Depot, they have these little salespeople that want to talk to you. And so one of the salespeople come to talk to me, and they say, hey, we have this program for ACs and all that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, yeah, give me your number because I might need you. A week after that, my AC blows, so I end up calling the guy, and he gets everything set up for me. He comes in, he looks around, starts, giving me his sales pitch. Pretty much all those sales tactics, yeah, I pretty much fell for everything. And the cheapest AC that I ended up getting, I think, was $6,500. I now know that for at least that kind of house that I had, during that time, I could have got an AC for probably maybe $2,500, $3,000 tops, but I pretty much overpaid, but it's fine. So I now have this AC, this credit card that I used to pay for the AC because it was interest free for 12 months. So that's $6,000 there. I have $20,000 in student loans, and I end up having, I think it's either $11,000 or $13,000 in car loans, which I ended up borrowing the money from my parents to pay off the car note completely, and then I would just pay him off for the car. So in total, I probably had, I think it was about $44,000 at one point. I remember it was in the 40s, and yeah, that was 2019. Some of it was also travel. I know for a lot of the travels that I did, it was the year that I did the most traveling I've ever done, which I don't regret it. I mean, I enjoyed it. My goal is for maybe sometime in the near future to be able to take another year like that. So yeah, I end up having all this debt. I think, so this other debt that I ended up picking up, and it was also on my credit cards, was my bathroom started leaking. So when I first moved into the house, it was the pipe from the faucet in the shower, right? Then later on the following year, it was the toilet was leaking upstairs, and that was causing a lot of leaks in the kitchen and in the living room. So anyways, I ended up finding out it was from the toilet. I put in an insurance claim. That was my first time putting a claim on anything, so that was an experience as well. That was an interesting experience because the guy, when I first called, oh my goodness, this guy was just yelling at me. He was talking to me like I was a child, and at first I got taken aback by it because it was kind of unexpected. So I was like, okay, fine. I hung up the phone, and I'm like, yo, this guy he was really disrespectful. So the only reason I didn't blow up on him was because he got me by surprise. But I already had it in my head where I'm like, the minute this guy calls me back and he tries to talk to me like that, it's gonna be an issue. So anyways, he does call me back. He starts, preaching to me, and then I end up going off on him. We start yelling at each other back and forth. Ultimately, he ends up calling my agent, my insurance agent. So then my insurance agent calls me, starts telling me what's the problem, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, hey man, he's not gonna talk to me like that, point blank and simple. Then the insurance agent pretty much just said, well, that whole claim is, it's pretty much in his hands, so maybe you should try to amend it a little bit. And ultimately, I just called him. I called the guy back, and we just talked. I gave him the stuff that he asked for. It was really awkward. So I did learn from that experience, because ultimately I didn't get as much as I probably could have got. The things that he gave me, the quotes that I was getting was like $5,000 to fix all the things that I needed to fix. And ultimately what they gave me was $2,000. It was really $3,000 with the $1,000 deductible. And I did try to email him back and say, hey, like, these are all the quotes that I'm getting. Like, I need more. Which he told me, if you get all the quotes, send them to me and I'll review them. I never heard from him. Now, in hindsight, I should have kept bothering him. I probably should have called, should have kept sending emails, I should have kept blowing his phone up. But I just sent that one email, and then I called it quits because I found another contractor that said, oh, for $2,000, yeah, I'll fix all of the stuff that you need, that you need fixed. and he fixed the big things, but the other stuff that I needed fixed, he did not do. Like he did a really bad job. Like it was just a botched job, just terrible. But anyways, all of that got fixed, and it left me with all the water mitigation and stuff like that, which again, I take all of that as a learning experience, because ServPro came out, they put in their dehumidifiers, all of like the stuff that they do to mitigate the damages, and they charged me a lot of money. So all of that went on a credit card, and I think I called ServPro a second time, but the guy was really nice, so he actually gave me like a lot of advice. And from that, I learned that if I have water damage like that, I can actually just order the equipment, or I can go to Home Depot and rent all of that equipment, and I can do the water mitigation myself. Which, I mean, doing that myself wasn't a problem, because when I first came out of high school, I used to work with a friend of the family's job, and he was a subcontractor for ServPro as well. And so all those water mitigation jobs he would take me to. So I already pretty much knew what I had to do when a pipe would burst, or when there was flooding or anything like that. So I just didn't know I could rent the equipment. So when he told me that, I said, oh, okay, problem solved. I'll never overpay to have you guys come out here. So that was a learning experience, which again, it cost me probably a couple $1,000s, a few $1,000s, whatever it was. I don't remember right now. But again, I paid $20,000 for a useless education. So that's pretty much how I put everything into perspective now. When something negative happens, I think, okay, well, I'll pay so I can learn from this. And let's say it's like a $5,000 problem that happened. I just think, hey, well, you paid $20,000 for a useless degree. You paid $20,000 to go to college. Haha, stupid. So what's paying $5,000 for something that you're actually going to use, and something that you're actually going to learn a valuable life skill from? So that's just how I put everything into perspective now. But yeah, so 2019 ends, and I have a bunch of debt, and now I have a goal where I said, hey, 2019, I had my fun, everything's good. Now for 2020, I want to really focus on getting my life in order. I want to focus on getting all my finances in order. I want to focus on making sure that I set myself up to have the best retirement possible. I don't want to be like these people that I work with. And so I made a goal. But anyways, by this time, my house still had some other issues. I wasn't sure if the contractor that I hired really fixed the leak in the toilet. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think he did. So I had a hole in the living room ceiling for a while that I couldn't get fixed, because I couldn't have anybody go over there to fix it for me, because I just didn't really have the money for that at the time. So around the end of 2019, maybe like November, I already planned out what I wanted to do come 2020. I knew when 2020 hit, celebrate New Year's, 2019, December 31st, celebrate that New Year's. And then once January 1st hit, I just want to hit the ground running. So I make a whole plan, and I say, okay, I'm going to save some money, and I'm going to make sure that the house is in good condition, because I already had a lot of problems with that house. In hindsight, it was a lot of problems. At the time, I wasn't even really thinking too much about it. I was just like, okay, well, this is messed up. That's messed up. It is what it is. I mean, I live here by myself, so who cares? So yeah, so I made a plan, and I basically realized, okay, I have a lot of debt, and I was starting to learn investing at that time, like stocks and all of that. And I kind of started listening to Dave Ramsey. And so one of the main things that I wanted to do was, okay, I want to free up my cash flow. So to do that, I need to start paying off my debt. So I made it a thing where I want to invest and pay off my debt. Now, I should have just focused on paying off my debt, whatever. This is just what I did. So anyways, at the time, I'm thinking, I have all this debt, I want to get rid of it. Like, I just want to get rid of it. And I also want to invest. So I had these two things that are pulling me, like really motivating me. I want to invest, and I want to pay off my debt. So my thing was, I want to pay off my debt as quick as possible so I can start investing as quick as possible. Ultimately, I ended up doing both. Spoiler. When January 1st hit, I wanted to put my spare bedroom, because the townhome that I bought was a 2.5. So my spare bedroom, I wanted to put it for rent, because ultimately I ended up doing nothing with it. So I paid somebody to come in and basically take a look at the whole apartment or the whole townhome and make sure everything was fixed. I don't remember how much that cost me, but it wasn't as expensive as I thought. But at least at that point, I'm like, okay, I have all that fixed. January 1st, 2020 hits, and I put my room on Craigslist for rent. I get a guy. He comes in. I feel him out. He looks like a good dude, and he says, okay. He says, hey, I'm really interested. I'm gonna go to the bank tomorrow, and I'll bring you the money. So I'm like, all right. So if he doesn't bring me the money, I'll keep the ad up. If he does bring me the money, then I'll just take the ad down. I didn't really think anything of it. He actually does end up texting me the next morning and says, hey, I'm stopping by. I got the money. So he gives me the money, and I give him the keys. Everything is good. So now I'm like, hey, I think I rented it. I don't remember what it was for. I don't remember if it was, I think it was like $500, $540, if I remember correctly. So I rented I think it was $540. I rented the room for about $540. And now in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. I just increased my income by $540. So this is awesome. This is great. And then my lender calls me and says, hey, interest rates dropped. Do you want to refinance your property? So I say, yeah, sure. I refinanced the property. And now my payments went down probably, I think it was close to $200. So now in my head, I'm like, okay, in this month, I just increased my cash flow by about $700, over $700, maybe $740, $750, something like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. I have $700 in excess cash flow now. And I use that to pretty much just, pay down my debt. I also started taking up more shifts at the funeral home. So at the time I was working 2 jobs. I had it was full time at the time. They ended up cutting my hours to about like 32, I think it was 35. It was either 34 or 35. But that had all my benefits, and then I could pick up shifts at the funeral home. So I said, all right, cool, I'm gonna start picking up shifts at the funeral home. So I went from averaging 15 hours a week at the funeral home to averaging about 30, because I said, okay, now I really need to, pick things up. So I was working about 30 hours at my part-time job, 35 hours at my full-time job. So that's about 60 to 65 hours a week that I was putting in for the first 3 months of that year. Well, then at the beginning of March, I had just came back from a vacation, and COVID happens, right? Actually, no, this was before COVID. As soon as I get back from vacation, I pick up a 3rd job, and I start working over there, and I enjoy it. I'm now working 3 jobs. So the way I scheduled it was, I'm either working at my main job, I'm either working at the funeral home, or I'm either working at this 3rd job that I just now picked up. So I was working around the clock. So this job was more like an on-call thing. So I would only work whenever I was not on the clock for those 2 other jobs of mine. I was working for this company. And anyways, that guy was a real piece of shit. But anyways, that's later down the road. So now at this point, I'm working for this company, and then COVID happens, and I'm just find myself working all the time. Like, I know COVID happened to some people and they were laid off, and that was unfortunate. Well, actually not really, because they were getting paid to pretty much not do anything. So lucky them. But for me, I was just working all the time. I wasn't getting any unemployment checks or anything like that. To be honest, I don't really care for all that government assistance. Like, that's just me. I think I'm self-sufficient on my own. But COVID happens, working, and now I'm just pretty much tackling the debt. I'm tackling the debt, and the market was at an all-time bottom low. So I'm thinking, hey, I want to invest. So with one job, the money that I'm making from it, I'm using it to pay off debt. With the other job, the money that I'm making from it, I'm using it to invest. So that was pretty much the plan for most of that year. That was 2020. So that was all of 2020. So I'm averaging about 100. I'm probably working about 100, easily 100 hours a week. I do that for probably actually most of the year. And I get to the point where I told myself I was not going to take a day off unless my girlfriend had something planned for us. Like, hey, we have an event. If there is no event, I'm working. That was it. And once I finally, because my goal at that time was to get my net worth to a zero net worth. So when 2020 started, my net worth was negative 30,000, and I said I want to get it to zero. That'll be the first milestone, and I ended up achieving that by, I don't really remember. I actually have all of this in an Excel sheet still to this day, because I was tracking my net worth like every day. So I was trying to get it to zero minus the real estate. Like I don't include real estate into my net worth. At least during this time, like my whole thing was just to get all that credit card debt and my cash to zero out. And so once I finally got it to zero, then I started giving myself every Sunday off. I'm like, okay, now I can start taking some days off. And every Sunday I would take Sunday off, and I will pick up again on Monday morning. I will go to one job, then go to my other job, and then start this other job at night. But that was pretty much it. Every Sunday I would start giving myself every Sunday off. All right, I'm not sure if it was every Sunday. I think it was every other Sunday. Yeah, it started off, I would give myself 2 Sundays a month off, every other Sunday. And then progressively, I started giving myself every Sunday off. Now I'm at the point where I'm at a positive net worth. And this happened by the end of 2020, towards the end of 2020. Now I'm thinking, okay, I want to make even more money. So at this time, cars were actually appreciating in car value, and I had a Prius. Now, the third job that I work, I have the company vehicle. So I'm thinking this car pretty much just sits at home, meaning my Prius just sits at home. And since it's not being driven, it messes up the internal battery. So I'm thinking, okay, I really like this car, and really I like the Prius because it's cheap on gas. That was really the main reason why I got it. And I really wish I had it now, but I don't. So I sell my Prius because it went up in value, and I buy myself a beater. So I think I bought the beater. It's a really old beat up Nissan Sentra. Yeah, I still drive it to this day. I'm not even ashamed of it. That's the funny part. But anyways, I buy this car for $2,000. Well, the lady was selling for $25,000. I offered her $2,000. She accepted it. Then I put $500 to fix it up and get it in better condition. And I take the rest of the money and I throw it into the market. So I put it into a bunch of index funds and things like that. And that was money that I was gonna pretty much use in the future for other things. I think towards the end of 2020, I was thinking of getting into like the real estate game. It wasn't a plan that I had yet. It was just in like an idea, like, oh, maybe I could get a second property, blah, blah, but I wasn't really too deep into it. So towards the end of 2020, now I have a nice savings. I have most of my debt paid off. I think I have everything paid off except my student loans. So I paid off the credit cards, I paid off the car note or the car money that I owed my stepdad, and all I have is student loans. I actually was able to cut my student loans down to about $15,000. So I paid $5,000 of that off. I still have the student loan to this day, only because I haven't needed to make a payment. Once I start making payments, then I'll probably focus on eliminating that. But for now, it's fine. And then I meet with a couple of friends, or a few friends, and we try to start a business. That business just does not work out. It's fine. It's not that important to the story. What is important to the story is we end up falling victim to the whole GameStop and AMC squeeze. And ultimately, long story short, from the years of 2021 to mid 2022, AMC ended up losing me about $17,000. So to this day, I'm still taking my tax write-offs from that. So again, lesson learned, whatever. But I put a bunch of my savings into AMC, and I ended up making a lot of money at first, and then I ended up losing $17,000. Now, while I was holding AMC, I still had the money from the car that I had sold. So after my friends and I, we we dissolve our LLC. I decide, okay, well, now I'm gonna go my own way, because I had ideas that I wanted to do. They had their ideas. We didn't mix, so we said, okay, cool, we're still friends. But now at this point, I'm thinking, now I'm just gonna do what initially it was that I wanted to do. And now I went into real estate. So Oh, to backtrack that, when we got together before we came up with that business idea, we were pitching ideas back and forth because we wanted to collectively bring our money together to come up with a business idea. And then at that time, that's when one of the ones that I suggested was real estate. And it just didn't work out. We ended up putting a bunch of money into AMC and all that happened. So then I got some of my money back. And then that's when I was like, okay, I had pitched them the idea of doing real estate. They didn't want to do it, so now I'm gonna do it. So yeah, I left that part. I ended up using my stepdad as a co-signer for that mortgage. And I also learned a few things from that, meaning I worked out a deal with him. It's not like he just came in and signed, because, you know, that wouldn't, like, he just wouldn't do that. But I worked out a deal with them. What I learned from that is whenever you work out a deal, even if they're family, always make sure that you have it in writing, and make sure that you sign it, and make sure that they sign it, because if you don't, there's a good chance it might come back to bite you. And anyways, but regardless, that doesn't matter. So I'm able to purchase the second property. So now at this point, I rent both of the rooms on the new property that I purchased. This one was a 3-2. And then I rent out the other property. Now the other property, I actually didn't rent it out till 6 months later, because once I moved out of that property, I ended up finding some water damage in one of the rooms, and that became a whole nother issue. But ultimately I did get my first property rented out, and I have both of my rooms in my new property rented out. And it got to the point where at one point the 2 rooms being rented out covered most of the mortgage on that second property that I bought. And then I had rented one of the rooms out to this girl, and her boyfriend moved in, so I charged them a little bit more. And then I was actually profiting. I was covering the mortgage and making some extra on top of that. Plus I was still cash flowing from my first property. So there was a period when like things were really good, because now at this point, and also after I purchased that second property, I ended up quitting 2 of my 3 jobs. So now I found a different job, and I'm working my first job. So I made the new job that I found my full-time, and my old full-time job, I made it my part-time. And yeah, so did that for a couple of months, and then ultimately I ended up quitting. Well, actually, I got let go because I wouldn't take the COVID vaccine. Again, anybody could have done whatever they wanted to do. I didn't care if you took it or if you didn't, but for me, I just did not want to take it, because in my personal opinion, it was pretty shady. But again, I just didn't feel a need for it. So I wouldn't get the COVID vaccine, and so they let me go. And I said, you know what? I think they did me a favor, because I was so exhausted. So I let go of those 2 jobs and got another job. So now I had 2 jobs. One was full-time. That full-time job, I was putting in close to 70 hours a week. And then I was working 25 hours a week on the first job. So in total, I was putting in about 95 hours a week. So anyways, so the good time was when my mortgage was almost covered by, actually the total rent covered all my mortgages and cash flowed. Plus I'm working all these hours, so I had a surplus of money. I was making a lot of money. I was able to stack cash a lot. So that was 2021. Then 2022 comes around, and what happened to the house? Okay, 2022 comes around, and the AC on that house also blows. So now I have to fix that AC. And then there's a giant tree in the back that needs to be cut down, because I was scared that the roots were gonna destroy the foundation of the house. So we paid to have that tree cut and have the AC removed. So yeah, so we took care of that. I was able to pay for it. I had plenty of money saved up over there. It didn't really bother me too much. I was happy that I could at least get the old AC out and a new AC in and get that tree removed, because that was really worrying me. Even though I enjoyed the shade, I did not like those roots destroying my backyard and in the house ultimately. So now we get to the end of 2022, and I decide to buy a third property. So I end up finding a property, and I learned a lot of lessons from this property. It was a terrible deal. I'm still paying for it today, but I find a property that I like, and it was one that I had been eyeing for a while. I had been eyeing one of these little townhomes in this area for a long time. Little did I know they were a nightmare. So anyways, I buy the third home. It's got 3 master bedrooms. So my plan when I bought this townhome was to rent it out by the room. Since it had 3 master bedrooms, I thought it'd be a great idea to rent all 3 bedrooms out. Then this was September. So at the time was when Hurricane Ian hit, and the house gets hit and everything floods. So now the house is completely destroyed. So I don't get to go through the plan that I had wanted to do. Now I'm really just stuck living in this house for a lot longer than what I wanted to. Now I have 3 properties. I rented out the old one, I rented out the whole house. I have my first property still rented out, and now I have this new property that is completely destroyed. During this time, it was getting close to when I had to have my ACL surgery. So now I have a house that's completely destroyed. I can't really tend to it. I tried to do like the whole FEMA thing. Didn't really work out how I wanted it to. They did end up giving me some money, but not nearly enough to get the house in living condition. And I tried to go through the whole steps to see if they would send more, but no, they wouldn't. So I end up going through with the surgery, and I end up having to spend a couple of months over at my parents' house because I couldn't walk up the stairs. I mean, my knee hurt. It was all bummed out. So once I finally returned back to the house, and I told my parents, all right, I'm good enough to walk up down the stairs, I'll figure it out. I returned to the house, and I find that the whole house was pretty much covered in mold. It smelled humid, it smelled moldy. So I start working on how do I fix this house. I start bringing in contractors and all of that, and basically I bring in a mold hygienist. I didn't know that was a profession until then, and she basically tells me that all the walls in the house have to come down. And then I bring in one contractor and says, hey, the outside has to get painted. The stucco looks like it's absorbing water, and it looks like you have some cracks throughout the walls that's letting water come in through to the house. So this was this was early 2023, because that's when I came back to the house. Now I have this. Now this is basically what the whole picture looks. I have 2 houses that are rented, and now I'm stuck in this house that's covered in mold. So for all of 2023, I'm pretty much just fixing this house. Also, I think 2023 was also the year when I finally got accepted into the Amazon program, or the Amazon influencer program. I was able to get in. I was happy. It was a lot easier for me to get my social media. At the time, I ended up using Instagram, and it was easier for me to get in with my Instagram at that time. But then Instagram changed like the whole algorithm. So this is a whole different story, but Instagram changed the whole algorithm, and it just became a whole lot harder to get reach. So I now don't get the reach that I used to, and I don't even post that much anymore. So I really don't get. I'm trying to post more, but I don't. So yeah, it's like a dead platform for me. I wish to revive it. Hopefully one day I'll focus more on it. Right now, it's got a bunch of other things going on, so I don't really care for it. But yeah, so 2022 was really focusing on experimenting with different side projects, different little side hustles. Did a little bit of Etsy, did Amazon. I was supposed to try the whole YouTube thing as well, but I didn't, and well, here I am today because of it. So anyways, at some point I did do it. So I got these side projects, these little side hustles, all this stuff that I'm working on, and I have this house that I'm trying to fix, right? So every time I thought I fixed the house, a new problem would come up, and it was really a headache. So that thing was just so stressful. I ended up putting the house on forbearance. So by August, I think I ended up having to make the first payment. The mortgage let me pretty much add the the loan, the amount that I owed, they let me add it to the end of the mortgage. So whenever I end up paying off the house, I have to owe that money that I put on forbearance. But whatever, that's a problem for future me as well. So once I finally end up fixing the house, I start thinking, I initially I didn't want to rent the house out. I really didn't. Once I got to that point, I'm like, I'm here, I don't want to rent it. Maybe I can hit it big on one of these like side hustles, and then I won't have to rent out the rooms. But then I start thinking, hey, like, you need to make more money. So I said, yeah, screw this. So I ended up renting the 2 rooms in that house. And I made one of the rooms at the time was my office. So I took the office and I just put it into my bedroom. So now I had a lot of room in my room. Now I don't have so much room. I have like a little table in there, and I have like my whole little office area, and then my closet was like my little workshop. So it was really tight. Everything was clustered up in there, but I had to do what I had to do. And yeah, so I rented those 2 rooms out to help me out with the mortgage. And then that pretty much sums up 2023. 2024 comes around, and I start thinking, okay, I think I need to buy another property now. So I ended up buying, and this property was going to be for myself and me and my girlfriend, because we decided to really, I guess, take the next step in our relationship. So I buy this condo for us to live in, and that, I end up having to go through a bunch of loopholes to get that deal to work out, but I do. So I buy this condo, so now that is my 4th property, and I live in this one. And then I rent my room out. So now I have the property, being used how I initially intended it to be used. So I have that house rented out by the room, and I have my other 2 properties rented out. And then I have this property that I live in, and eventually I will rent that out as well once I'm ready to move into what I want to say is like my final house. Or not my final house, but at least the house that I plan on living in for a while, because I've been doing a whole lot of moving around for the past 4 years. And yeah, so that's really essentially how I scaled my real estate portfolio to $1 million. And that's where I am today. I have a real estate portfolio that's worth over $1 million. During that time, while I was saving money and pretty much working my ass off day in and day out, I would up my 401k. So I know a lot of people say you shouldn't really put too much money into your 401k, like put some in your Roth first. And I have my reasons for why I did it the way that I did. I have yet to ever max out my Roth IRA, but my 401k, I put 15 to 20% of my income in it. And part of that was I wanted less money. Like when my taxes get taken out and the 401k contributions get taken out, I like seeing less, because I feel like seeing less on my paycheck will motivate me to go out and do more. So it was just like a psychological reason for it. So during all this time, my retirement account was just growing and growing and growing. So now my retirement account looks decent, at least for somebody my age. My Roth could be better, but it is what it is. At least I have a Roth, some people don't. And yeah, and I have 4 properties. So I have 4 properties. Retirement account is pretty good. And at one time, my savings account was great, but I ended up having to buy this condo with a 25% down payment, about 5% in closing costs. It was close to about 6%. So in total, it was about 31% of the purchase price to get this condo. So that pretty much ate up at my savings. It is what it is, and I ended up having to take like a side loan for that. But anyways, that's how I got to where I'm at today. Basically, during that time, I was able to work a lot. I learned a few things. I invested a lot into the market. I lost a lot in the market, but I think ultimately, actually not I think, I know, I made a lot more in the market than what I actually lost. And I was able to scale the real estate portfolio up to $1 million, which is, good for me. While I was out there buying all this real estate in Florida, the real estate market was also appreciating. So each property that I bought got significantly more difficult to buy than the previous. And yeah, but it did increase my net worth overall significantly. So now the whole problem that I have is trying to break through. I had to figure out what it is that I have to do next to get myself to the next level. Right now, I'm probably a quarter of the way there. I'm a little bit more than a quarter of the way there. Again, the ultimate goal is $1 million in net worth. Real estate was obviously the easiest way to get there, but I have a lot of debt. I need to pay that debt off and see what I'm gonna do to, go from here. So again, the goal is 0 to $1 million in net worth. I'm a quarter of the way there, and this video was just basically explaining or trying to summarize how I got from negative 30,000 to a quarter of the way there. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. I needed to make this. I needed to make this a long time ago, but at least now this will pretty much be the starting point. So I can always look back at, on this video to basically recount everything that I did from 2018 up until now. And then this channel will basically be everything from, this point, which is July 29th, all the way up until eventually I get to $1 million. Even if it takes me another 10 years from now or 15 years from now, I'll just be posting this for myself, and hopefully this will help. It will help me in expediting this whole process.